Hello, music lovers. Welcome back to the Ms. Music channel here on YouTube. And I am your host, Ms. Music. So it's been a while since I've been on YouTube on this channel anyway. But so since it has been a while, I ask that you please forgive me and accept my very belated Happy holidays wishes. So happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year to one and all. I hope this year started off on a good foot for everybody being all fine and well. So in this video, I want to talk about, okay, does anybody remember, or if you've ever heard of this duo rather, called The Captain and Tennille? Their breakout song was Love Will Keep It Together. Their peak or prime was like from the early to late 1970s. They had other hits also like Do That To Me One More Time, Muskrat Love, I Never Wanted to Touch, and Angel Face. Those were the songs that I knew. But anyway, I came across a video here on YouTube by this channel called, hold on. Let me write the channel down or put it up here on the screen. I'm going to put it up here, but I also listed in the description box so you can get it from there and watch the video yourself. So the name of the channel is Hollywood Icons. Check it out. Like I said, it's here on YouTube. So now on to the captain of The Captain and Tennille. There's a lot to unpack in this video, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. I believe I am going to start with Mr. Daryl Dragon, also known as the captain of The Captain and Tennille. Now, Daryl Frank Dragon was born on August 27th, 1942 in Los Angeles, California. His father was the renowned music conductor Carmen Dragon. He won an Oscar for a movie called Cover Girls back in the day. Then he went on to be the conductor for the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra. But he was a tyrant at home. But I'll get back to him in just a minute. Daryl's mother's name was Eloise, and it is said that she was a talented soprano. Now, both parents being musicians, music in the Dragon household wasn't necessarily something that was played or sang for joy. Everything, and I mean everything, had to be done for a reason. Musically speaking, their father, Carmen Dragon, was said to have been an authoritarian person who he was relentless, seeking relentless perfection. And he could be ruthless. He just wanted to, he drilled it in his children's heads. Do not tarnish my name. Do not tarnish my name. That became the mantra of the Dragon household. And Daryl was a sensitive child to begin with. And then he had his dad at home. He was so scared of making mistakes that he eventually shut the world out. It's not just because he feared his father or whatever. Daryl was born with a condition called megalothermos. They said that it's a rare congenital condition that causes the eyeballs to outgrow the sockets of the eye, so your eye sockets. And as a result of that, obviously the children at school, they're mean. They don't know any better. And sometimes it's not like they're trying to understand. So they kept calling him a monster and, an alien. So at a very young age, he learned to shut the whole world out. Even when it came down, years and years later, even when it came down to his wife. Humans really served no purpose for Daryl. He had the kids at school teasing him, taunting him. And then his father ran the house like he was, the number one drill sergeant in the world or something. He was just real timid. And so, as a result of all of that, because of the taunting that was going on to him at school about his eyes, he began wearing sunglasses, the wraparound sunglasses, and he literally never took them off because he was extremely light sensitive. But not only did he wear them indoors, he wore them even in the dark, according to this video. All of this is allegedly. He wore his shades even in the pitch black darkness that was his house. So he became the only thing that brought him any type solace or joy was the piano. He loved the piano. He mastered it. And it became something he just gravitated toward because pianos or musical instruments, they don't talk back. They don't make, say unkind things. And if you do something that I guess an instrument doesn't like, it can't really do anything to you. So his whole world literally revolved around music and keyboards. He became a perfectionist. Matter of fact, he was a child prodigy. And although his other siblings, they were in music, Daryl apparently was the only one who showed any real talent. Now, the other kids, I think one of his sisters, her name was Carmen, but her last name was Carol. I guess she had gotten married, but she was a harpsichordist. She played the harps. But he had two brothers. And after he took up with Tennille, or Tony and Tennille, whatever he had with his brothers just kind of fell by the wayside. But, okay, so he's in school. The piano is his only source of comfort. So, he starts to make a name for himself around town, always hearing in his head and always in the back of his mind. Never does a moment go by that he's not hearing his father say, "Do not tarnish my name." And so he ended up starting to, once he became, making a name for himself, he had the sunglasses, but he started losing his hair early, like maybe late teens, early 20s. This is when he started wearing the captain's hat. Now, he got the nickname, the captain, after I know some of you probably are familiar with the group The Beach Boys. I've read their biography as well. But their youngest brother, Dennis Love, took Daryl on as a backup for him. So he really made a name for himself like that. But even though he made the name, he really wasn't known for his personality. He was known for having a technical precision unlike no other. He was sought after. So, let's go over here and talk a little bit about Tony Tennille. Now, Tony was born May 8th, 1940 in Montgomery, Alabama. Now, her father, like Daryl's father, was also a conductor, but Tony's father was into big band. He was a big band and jazz conductor and leader. Her mother worked in television, and their house was full of love. They hugged, they kissed on the cheek, they made, pat you on your shoulders for, always providing words of encouragement and just laughter. It was loud. And so this is how Tony Tennille grew up. Her name is Catherine Antoinette Tennille. I kind of like that, and I like that they call her Tony for short. But anyway, how did these two meet, Daryl and Tony? Tony was living, I don't know, she was young, and she ended up in California. She and one of her friends had written a rock musical called Mother Earth. Well, they were out performing it. They were going to different stages or venues or somewhere performing it. But they needed a keyboardist at the last minute. Something happened. They needed a keyboardist. Daryl had just come back off the road from backing up the Beach Boys. He walks in, sits down at the piano, and the magic began. After that, they asked him to if he wanted to join whatever band Tony was in at the time. And so he did. Okay, here's where I said that Daryl was a child prodigy, but so was she. But she was geared more toward big band and jazz and blues. That's what she grew up on. And later on, we'll talk about the difference, where that made a play. But yes, when he joined the band, okay, so at first, Tony saw Daryl as being painfully shy, maybe a little self-conscious, so she would go out of her way and things. So she would do things like make sure that he ate, because he just simply would forget to eat sometimes. And she would always make sure his clothes were laid out and matching, because Daryl didn't care what he looked like. And she would, even when it came down sometimes to signing different contracts, she would sit there and read it out word for word and tell him where to sign, because Daryl simply could not bear standing in front of people and talking to. No, that just was not going to happen. Somehow she sensed it and she picked up on it, and it started out, she was just doing it to kind of help move the process is along, be it working on an album, performing, whatever. She was just doing stuff to kind of keep everything abreast and they could move on. But at some point, she started to care for him. And, yeah, he's just there letting her, but he simply looked at her as like a means to an end, so to speak. Now, everyone in the business, they already picked up Daryl being very aloof, very standoffish. But to Tony, that was just him being painfully shy, and she thought that she could coax him out. But nothing couldn't have been further from the truth, unfortunately. And it was so bad that he did not ask her to marry him. One day they went to an accountant's office, and they had been, charged with all types of fees for this and that and the other, so on and so forth. And so the accountant looked up and just said, if you all would just get married, you would be doing yourselves, you would save much more considerably than what you're actually paying out now. So Daryl, being a number whiz, he went over the paperwork. He did that day. Then he looks up and says to Tony, well, we should get married. And so later on that same day, they left California and went down to Virginia and got married. There was no form of celebration. It was just Tony, the captain, and whoever was the witness for the wedding. No gowns, no receptions, no congratulations or any of that. They just came back to California and they went to work. That's how they ended up getting married. But Tony just, she believed in, I know, because she felt like she I said she started out doing it just to help things move along. Then she noticed that she was caring for him, beginning to care for him. Eventually that turned into her loving him. She just really and truly, even though she knew that others knew that he wasn't reciprocating to her at all, she could not give up on him. She loved him, and she just refused to throw the towel in. She just figured, it's taking a little longer than I thought, but I'm going to hang in there. And that's what she did for 39 years. Now, unfortunately for Tony, nothing ever got better. They were married for a whole 39 years. And it is said, according to Hollywood icons, that they never had sex. They viewed sex in two different ways. Even on their wedding night, they talked about how she laid in the bed, legally married, and all she wanted him to do was to come to her, and make love and, whatever. That's what she was doing on her side of the bed. He, on the other hand, was on his side of the bed, wanting to get a good night's sleep so he could get up and go to work the next morning. And that was the beginning of 39 years of nothingness, according to this particular video. Now, Daryl also, aside from having megalothermos, he had a condition known as tactile defensive disorder, meaning he could not bear anybody touching him. he couldn't. So it wasn't that he was just deliberately, not letting her hug him or letting her even just pat him on his shoulder. There could absolutely, positively be no contact of physical touching. And as far as sex went, he viewed sex as merely if you just had to do it. You need to just get on down to the nitty gritty, just the straight up sex. No foreplay, no pillow talk, nothing that leads up to, the actual intercourse. And so, I guess that just left her without. Well, yeah, it had to. So, now we go on and we learn that he has this disorder. If they walk down the hall and she brushes up against him in the least bit, he just crumbles. I don't know. This video also taught me about a lot of stuff I never even heard of. I have an eye disorder. I never heard of megalophthalmos. But I know I never heard of the tactile deficit disorder. Now, they did go on to say that had he been born today, he would have been diagnosed as having autism or either Asperger's syndrome. I guess all of this stuff is characteristics of those. So then she just kept believing, oh, he'll change, it'll get better over time. So you ask yourself, or I ask myself, why did she continue to stay? She knew that she was in a loving marriage according to her, because she knew she loved him. But she also learned that he was in a loveless marriage because he just looked at her. Their relationship, really, like I just said, she loved him, but she was just a means or somebody to carry out the things that he knew he couldn't do himself. And so, here's another term I never heard of before, but something called Cassandra syndrome. Cassandra syndrome is when you just cannot accept the fact that, you're coming from a good and positive place, but whoever it is you're loving and you're working and trying to be there for cannot be that way towards you because they genuinely do not have the makeup to do so. So that's what she was dealing with day in, day out. And then it just got worse. Then now it starts to look like he just began to say unkind things to her, like she would go out of her way to make a special meal. He would never compliment her on it. He'd eat it, loved it, but he never said it was good or, you outdid yourself or anything. It was just something he did. And then when it came to recording, I told you that she was more into big band and jazz and blues. That was her style of singing. He crushed all of that and rebuilt her to be a pop star. It was safe. That was one reason he did it, because he knew if he could get her middle of the road, they would have the career that they did have. But, she had to forego everything she grew up knowing and learning if it was going to make him happy. That's what she did. So he took her style of singing away and replaced it with his. He never complimented. And then one time they were recording a song and she hit a high note that was totally out of her register. She hit it and she held it. When it was over, instead of him congratulating her or saying, I'm proud of you, whatever, he turns to her and says, you need to refine this area there and then try to, go back in a key that's even higher. Okay. Alabama woman. You know that wouldn't happen this day and time. Okay, so he changed the way she sang. He never complimented her on it. She would buy very expensive, like, negligees, and she would, the house was already pretty much dark. It got to the point to where he just started boarding windows up, because when you open the door to come in or go out, just that period of time was too much on his eyes. Although, if you're wearing those big extra black shades, and, I don't know, because I do know sometimes light can make you feel like it's cutting you like a knife. So I guess I could kind of see that. But it looked to me like if he knew she was going somewhere, he would just go in a room where he didn't have to be in there when the door was opened or closed. But anyway, he he just went from being peculiar to being downright eccentric. He boarded the house. Then he went on this rant about the way the food is prepared. It had to be prepared to his liking. And then, so they had to eat raw vegetables, not much in the way of meat. And she found herself having to sneak and eat. Like she might go grab her a burger from somewhere or a piece of salmon or whatever. If it was not on that list, she knew she couldn't go in the house with it. He changed all of the stuff out at home in the kitchen. So the staff had to prepare the meals. And if he did see her eat something that had not been approved, then she would be subjected to, like, tirades that could go on for upwards to 3 or 4 hours. Okay? So, I don't know how long that lasted, but it would only take one time for me. Here she is, can afford anything under the sun to eat. Money was no object, but she was hiding in, like, far corners of parking lots just so she could eat something she wanted. So, like I said, I don't know how long it lasted. But this just goes on and on. He decides they needed to move from California. So they did. But everywhere they went seemed to be more and more isolated. And which was fine and dandy for him, but it wasn't for her. She just didn't grow up doing that. So they ended up moving, and eventually they were in Prescott, Arizona. And when their careers started to go down, disco was dying out. We're heading to the 1980s. Their albums had stopped selling. And Daryl, now that's where he said he went into a depression. And it's not funny. Depression is not funny. That's not what I'm laughing at. But here you are dealing with your eyes. And they said that he's had a hypersensitive. His hearing was hypersensitive. He was on dog whistle time. So, I don't know how in the world he ever performed anything. Because, dogs hear way better than humans. And so she was like, he felt like he had no reason to, get up or do anything, but he never stopped making music. He just wasn't recording anymore. So you got your health, it's going down. She was dressing up, trying to seduce you. You still wasn't having it. Going on and going on. So eventually, in 2013, after being married, they got married November 11th, 1975. So, yeah, 2013, she had just about, she had reached her limit, and then so. And so she, hold on, guys, hold on for 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, so in 2013, she threw in the towel. She realized there was simply nothing else humanly possible she could do for this man. And so she went and filed for divorce. And she went into his room. Oh, yeah, they had stopped even sleeping in the same bed. They were in different bedrooms. And his room was pitch black dark. He was sitting up in there or lying down in there with those shades on. But he kept his room below freezing tip. Well, I don't think it was below freezing, but it was like maybe in the 30s. So, when she got the papers all drawn up, she went in there and she was like, Daryl, I'm going in the morning. In the morning. And he was like, where are we going? She said, I'm going. I'm leaving you. I want a divorce. He just sat there for a while. But then he asked her, well, who's going to take me to the doctor next Tuesday? Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. That's all. I mean, because now she had already suspected she was just, his flunky, so to speak. And like I say, she did it willingly for the better part of the marriage. But then for him to just come right out, it did shock him that she asked for a divorce. He just wanted to know how he would go get to the doctor. And she was like, you'll have to get somebody else to do it, Daryl. I've done it for 39 years. You're going to have to get somebody else. He looked at her, but he did go ahead and sign the papers. And the next morning, she got up and left. And she stayed in touch with him, though. And the divorce didn't become finalized, I think, until like 2015, or it could be 17. One of those, 15 or 17. I think it was 15. It was, because in 2017, he was diagnosed with renal failure. So he had to have help. Because when she first left him, it was just him. I guess he was calling other agencies and stuff to help get him somebody out there to help run the house or do whatever. But when he was diagnosed with renal failure, and Tony found out about it, she still didn't go right back to him. But like I said, they had always talked. He picked up the phone one day and called her. And he was like, why did you write? Because she published a book, and I cannot get a hold of this book. Nowhere have I been able to find it. But the name of her book is Tennille, a memoir. And in the memoir, she says, Daryl read it. And he called her, and he was like, why do you say that I don't love you? She said, because you don't, Daryl. And he said, you were here every day. You were with me every step I took. You were here with me, we ate. I never once suspected you of looking at or wanting to be with another man. And to him, because she was there, meant that he loved her. She was supposed to know that's why she was able to, because he loved her. But she was like, but maybe so. But sometimes you still have to show a person that you love them, not just make them feel like they're your taxi driver or your coordinator or whatever. Well, after he was diagnosed with renal failure, he did eventually end up having to have supervised care for like 24 hours around the clock. So at some point, I think it was late 2017, 2018, he had taken a turn for the worse. When Tony found out, she put everything she was doing on hold, and she went and she spent the rest of his life right there holding his hand. Okay, now, a day or so before he actually died, she said by this time he's actually in the hospital, and she had rented a little place right there next to the hospital. You know, if she wanted to go and take a nap or something, she would. But it wasn't until he got pretty much incapacitated that he stopped wearing the glasses, and he stopped wearing the hat. And she would sit for hours on end holding his hand. And she would sing songs that they had recorded, songs other people sang. And yes, her voice had aged, but she knows that it soothed him. And for the first time in decades, she leaned into him. And she actually established eye contact for the first time in decades. And she was singing. And then tears started falling down his cheeks, rolling down his face. He was just crying. He tried to say something, but he never, I guess, I'm not sure. But, well, they did say in the video that he was so weak from whatever all he had going on with the kidneys and the other disorders, all of that piled up on him, that he was trying to say something, but he physically could no longer speak. And I hope what he was trying to say to her was, I love you. But that's how he died. She leaned over into him, and she told him again that she loved him. And the tears just rolled. He didn't even try to fight her. He didn't try to move her hand, because before, whenever sometimes she would just run up to him and just throw her arms around him. He'd always jerk and pull back, take her hands away from him, and change the subject. Now he couldn't do that. And she just got as close as she could to him without being in the bed with him. And she hugged him, and he died right there in her arms. This happened January 2nd, 2019. So, I don't know. This was a rather, like I said at the beginning, a disturbing video for me, in part because I remember when they were real popular. I remember when they were in their heyday. But I did not recall ever seeing, reading, or hearing anything negative or, strange. Now, they did have a variety show, and on that show, he was known as being just an old grouchy, old curmudgeon type person. But little did the audience know he wasn't acting. That's simply who he was. She just always was able to, because sometimes on the show, like if he had to say something or if she was trying to interview him, she would be like, the captain doesn't like to talk, yeah, and stuff like that. But, so no, I didn't know. And I didn't know that one of their biggest hits, Muskrat Love, I didn't know that song was about two rats dating. They performed it at the White House. Now, here they are, and in one of the most dignified houses in the world. And they're dignitaries, and, you have doctors and lawyers, politicians, any and everybody. Now, somebody ran up to her, and they were like, "Oh, you're gonna sing? I never touched a man, or I never wanted a man the way I want you." She's like, "No, I don't think we're gonna do that." She's like, "Oh, you have to. That's my favorite song," she said. And, I know you'll do Love Will Keep Us Together. And so Tony said, "Well, yeah, I'll have to go see what the captain wants, and that's probably what we'll do." This man, of all songs he could choose, he chose Muskrat Love. I think I forgot to say that the Queen of England was here also. And that is the one thing that they have on their record, was that they performed a song about two rats dating in the middle of the White House. It was during the bicentennial of the United States. And Lord have mercy, I'm going to have to go back and listen to that song. I thought they said something about Sam and Susie, but I still thought it was humans. I didn't know Sam and Susie was the rats. Anyway, music lovers, I'm going to wrap this up. This has been a little longer than I thought it would be. And I am going to go ahead and put it over there on my other channel, The Book Connection. Because although this was a video, I learned just as much as I will reading some books. And so I hope you all enjoyed it. And I'm going to try to be more over here on this channel than I have been in the past. I know I might sound like I'm sick as a dog, but it's just the same. I'm all right. So, in the meantime, music lovers, thank you to all of the subscribers on this channel. In both channels, really, thank you so very much for being subscribed to both channels and visitors. The door is always open on both channels as well. And people, please do not forget to like, share, comment respectfully, and by all means, make sure that your notification bells are not only turned on, but they are set to all, so you'll be notified when I upload videos or whenever YouTube decides that it's okay to upload one of my videos. And in the meantime, both music lovers and book connectors, remember this: as long as there is something to read and rock out to, there'll always be something to enjoy. And until we read and rock again, please, everyone, be safe out there. Have a wonderful rest of the work week and weekend. And by all means, know that I thank you. And God bless.